I leave to the NATO countries. I don't have any comment on that.
What about the latest developments in the last few hours? The fact that there's been a battle raging around a nuclear power plant. Your reaction to that?
Well, I'm very concerned about the nuclear news. First, of course, we were concerned about the Chernobyl situation and the movement of the troops around the Chernobyl, which was raising probably the radioactive dust and increased the radiation there. And of course, the latest news of the burning building. Hopefully, the burns have now been taken down. But of course, the idea that there is active fighting in the vicinity of the working nuclear power plant is a very scary concept. And we hope, of course, that the Russian troops will immediately stop the fighting in that region.
So what do you make of Russian threats to Finland not to join NATO? What do you say to the Russians?
Well, our answer, of course, is that Finland decides its own security policy. We are responsible for our own security policy. We have a very good connections to NATO. We are in the partnership with NATO, and we have been working very closely on those issues. And according to European security rules, it's every country's right to decide their own security position. Thank you.
Just one final question. Last night, President Putin and President Macron talked to each other, and Putin said to Macron that he wants to take it all. Is that something you just accept, or?
No, of course we don't accept it. A sovereign country cannot be attacked like this. But now what is going on, in my understanding, on the talks on the border of Ukraine and Belarus between the delegations of Ukraine and Russia has been ongoing. The talks to open the humanitarian corridors, to protect the civilians in the cities and make the immediate ceasefire. Of course, we support all these Ukrainian claims in those talks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Or else, to be honest, you would not be great.
Monsieur? Merci, très bien, merci.
Yeah, but they're not killed. They're not great.
That's the door stuff there, right? Oh, just there.
Yeah, I'll show her.
Dat is toch wel leuk.
Yeah, it's not that.
Attends.
Let me please give my statement and then... Well, Greece, as a matter of principle, is always for international rule of law. And of course, the present situation in Ukraine presents the gravest challenge to the rule of international law in the 21st century. In our today's discussion in NATO, we have to address this challenge in a very appropriate manner, with full unity and with full conformity with international law. Apart from this, as you know, Greece has a substantial minority of 150,000 people around Mariupol in Ukraine. We care about those people. As we speak, there is Nostos 3, our third evacuation operation. We care and we pray for our compatriots.
Mr. Dendias, what can Greece do next? What can NATO do next, sir?
To the conversations we'll be having today. Talking about... I was made aware, like many of you, about the attack on the nuclear plant that was made late in the night. I was in contact with many of the Ukrainian officials. Prime Minister Trudeau also spoke to President Zelensky late in the night. Obviously, we condemn such an egregious attack that puts the security and health of civilians at risk, not only in the city, but also throughout the region. We condemn this attack, and I'll be having a conversation later this morning with the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency. We take this extremely seriously, and we will raise it this morning at NATO.
What can NATO do next, Minister?
But what more of a response needs to come from NATO members, given what we're seeing from them?
Well, NATO has been really united in making sure that we are reinforcing the eastern flank. But I think many of the NATO members and partners have been supporting lethal aid to Ukraine. We need to make sure that we do more. And we need to make sure also that we put maximum pressure on President Putin. That is the only way to make sure that this madness stops.
Minister, Mr. Zelensky wants a no-fly zone. He's crying out for fighters. He wants a no-fly zone. Is there any chance that NATO will answer positively to either of those requests?
Well, we know that our red line is to make sure that there's no international conflict triggered. President Biden has mentioned that, Prime Minister Trudeau agrees, and obviously this is something that we take into account in taking our decisions. At the same time, I would say that we want to make sure that scenarios are being discussed, and we want to make sure also that throughout the alliance and throughout all the countries that support Ukraine, that we can have discussions, because we need to stop this war.
When you say you do more, what can you as Canada do more?
We want to make sure that we isolate Russia economically, diplomatically, in every single way. This is the best way to make sure that we end this war. I had many conversations with my counterparts within the G7. I think at this point we know that there's a level of irrationality with Putin taking these decisions, and that's why we have to take that into account when dealing with this situation. Civilians are at risk right now. Canada has decided to petition the International Criminal Court because we think that Russia needs to be trialed for crime against humanity and war crime.
Are you afraid
Thank
that
you.
NATO could be dragged into this
What was
conflict?
the Canadian Foreign Minister, Melanie?
It is indeed a very timely. It is indeed a very timely meeting today of the foreign ministers, including as a follow-up to the NATO summit, which took place exactly a week ago. As far as Romania is concerned, for us the most important topic on the agenda is the response that NATO should give to the Russian aggression in the terms of consistent consolidation of the deterrence and defense posture on the eastern flank. For us, it is extremely important to accelerate as fast as possible the creation of the battle group in Romania, which will be under the lead of France as framework nation. And at the same time, I will stress today the importance for NATO to reconsider the philosophy, the structure, and the constitutive elements of the posture on the eastern flank, because the conditions are totally different from the ones when we have started to build this posture. We have to adapt the posture to the reality which well shows that the Russian troops are in Ukraine and in Belarus, so we need to rethink everything. At the same time, I will inform my colleagues about the decision taken by Romania, by the Romanian President, Mr. Iohannis, to increase the spending from 2% from the GDP to 2.5% starting with the next fiscal year. And I will also ask my colleagues, of course, to support more the partner countries, especially the Republic of Moldova and Georgia. Thank you.
What does that mean, changing the posture because of the actions of Russia on the eastern flank? Does that mean moving NATO from a defensive posture? Just explain to us a little bit more what you mean there, sir.
We need to restructure the posture in order to adapt it to what Russia is doing in Ukraine and in Belarus, because as we speak, basically Belarus has become another military district of Russia, and at the same time we have to take into account the presence of Russia in Ukraine with military forces, and this is very much different from the moment of 2014, where when Russia occupied illegally Crimea, and then, well, has built up its military presence there, but it was only Crimea which was occupied at that time. So we need to take into account this new reality and to adapt accordingly. Thank you.
Ne znam zašto tako se ne namestio.
Ovdje. Tak.
2 minuty. 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 Okay. Well, first, we've come together today to show our strong unity. We are united in our efforts to deter and, if needed, to defend all allies. We are united in our condemnation of the Putin's war. We have imposed substantial sanctions and Russia is isolated. The recent UN vote showed that the world is united against Putin's war of choice. Second, we are united in our solidarity with Ukraine. Their courage is impressive and their determination still to peaceful resolution is respectable. We are providing all kind of assistance to Ukraine and we are providing supports to the refugees. Ukraine is not alone, not today, not in the future. And third, we are meeting together with our valuable partners, Sweden, Finland and the EU, to discuss ways to step up our cooperation. This crisis has shown that EU enlargement is primarily a security policy, and therefore EU should be proactive in the Western Balkans and to speed up or expedite its EU enlargement for the sake of our joint stability and to close the vacuum for interventions.
Just to confirm, sir, the answer to Russia's concerns about the expansion of NATO eastward, about the policy of letting other countries in, that is completely false as far as you're concerned, is not a threat to Russian security?
Absolutely. In the Western Balkans, the enlargement of NATO was primarily the most important decision that has stabilized the region, and therefore we support the open door policy as the most important factor that can stabilize the region. Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much indeed. ¿Dónde estáis, Julio?
Steph est là, François. Hein? C'est Eric qui était bon. Sinon ça marche pas.
l'Atlas. Il est fragile, En motorcade, c'est pas possible de mettre les contrôles. Tu vas arriver, t'arrêter le
Oui, mais ça tombe toujours. Hein. Ça se veut, hein, ça se veut, mais... Ah non, 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 c'est pour le masque.
endnu bedre. Undskyld, at jeg svigtede jer i aften.
Det går nok. Jeg tænker...
Good morning.
Are you afraid that NATO could be dragged into this conflict?
So, and first of all, Europe's security is in danger because of the Russian aggression on Ukraine, and we see the tragic situation there, and the loss of lives, suffering, and destruction, and we pay really an tribute and respect to the bravery and the sacrifice of the resisting Ukrainian soldiers and civilians. And when it comes to Croatia, the Croatian people and political leadership are united and in supporting Ukraine. Of course, on a NATO alliance, defensive alliance, and we would like to avoid any escalation. However, we are firm in our unity and in our support of the Ukrainian people, and we call on Russia to stop immediately the invasion, withdraw and return to dialogue. Thank you very much.
The events of the last 24 hours change what needs to happen. The events around the nuclear facility, sir.
It's on our agenda. We will discuss it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Goedemorgen. Ik wil jullie vooral niet in verlegenheid brengen. Hè. Dat is natuurlijk...
Thank you very much.
Sir, statement or question?
I will start with statement, and then, of course, I'm open to any question. So, we are here to discuss the current situation, which is very serious, very serious. I'm personally shocked, and by the way Russian military conduct its operation on the territory of Ukraine and the way they attacked nuclear power plant. This is really serious situation, and we have to face it.
So what can the Czech Republic, what can NATO do in response to that event of the last 24 hours?
Why won't NATO enforce
Sorry. So,
what can NATO do, sir, in response to the events of the last 24 hours?
We have to strengthen the eastern flank of NATO. Speaking of NATO action, as a European Union, we will continue to discuss sanctions, and we have to make sure that all international community understand that this is a serious violation of any thinkable international law and even nuclear regulation. Okay, so
Considering that incident with the nuclear plant,
Yeah.
are you afraid that NATO might be dragged into this conflict in order to avoid a huge catastrophe?
NATO shouldn't be dragged into this conflict. NATO is a defense organization, and we have to defend our member. That's our task.
Why won't NATO enforce a no-fly zone?
No-fly zone mean NATO being in a conflict, since it would be NATO's forces enforcing this no-fly zone. However, let me finish, please. However, the Czech Republic and other states are supplying weapons to Ukrainians, so Ukrainians can enforce their no-fly zone. This is the proper solution.
So
okay.
Mr. Zelensky wants fighters.
Sorry.
They ask for more assets like planes and things like that. Can you offer that to them?
The Czech Republic is doing a lot. I don't want to specify more on that, and I'm sure that other states are doing also quite a lot. So now it's a matter of time to sustain this barbaric attack. Okay.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Goodbye.
there's been a battle around the nuclear power plant.
I'll get there. ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo está? ¿Qué tal? Bueno, vete a Sí, lo hago entonces en inglés, ¿no? No, cuidado. Gracias. Good morning. I will start in Spanish. Okay. Buenos días. Vengo a este Consejo Atlántico para mantener la posición de España, que tiene que ser la de una unidad sin fisuras. Una unidad sin fisuras en España, entre las fuerzas políticas, una unidad sin fisuras entre los socios de la Unión Europea y una unidad sin fisuras entre los aliados atlánticos. Ayer tuve un contacto con el ministro de Asuntos Exteriores de Ucrania, mi colega y amigo Dmytro Kuleba, informándome de madrugada del inquietante asalto a la central nuclear por parte de fuerzas rusas y chechenas. No podemos permitir esas escenas en Europa. No podemos permitir que nuestros ciudadanos vivan angustiados con posibilidades que habían desaparecido hace ya muchas décadas. de la mente de todos los europeos. Europa es una construcción de paz. La OTAN es una organización defensiva para garantizar la estabilidad y la paz. Y eso, con una unidad sin fisuras, es lo que venimos hoy a forjar aquí una vez más. I will be.
During the incident at the nuclear plant, do you think that NATO has to act in order to avoid a huge catastrophe?
Yesterday night, my colleague and friend Dmitry Kuleva contacted me, and he explained me the threat that was happening in the nuclear plant. These are things that were out of the minds of Europeans and allies since decades. We cannot allow this to come back again. Europe is a body created, an organization created to secure peace. NATO is a defensive alliance. So we have to be united without any breach among us, as we have been so far, to secure peace all over Europe.
So you've changed, you're talking about what NATO needs to do, but has the EU changed now? Has Spain changed? Has Germany changed? Do we need to be more forthright and more offensive in Europe rather than defensive, given what we're seeing in Russia and Ukraine?
We haven't changed. We continue fostering peace, stability. That's the source of our prosperity and our way of life. We are adapting to the new threats, certainly, and we will respond to those threats to continue promoting and securing peace and stability in Europe.
Do you think that NATO has to intervene militarily?
Those are words that we have to discuss inside with our colleagues. Once again, we don't have to do anything to escalate. This is Putin's war. He is the only wanting war. Neither NATO, nor the European allies, nor the Ukrainians themselves, or Ukrainian governments, want war. What we want is peace.
Well, what about a no-fly zone?
Last one. Sorry?
What about a no-fly zone, especially over the nuclear plant?
What about, sorry?
No-fly zone.
We'll discuss that inside. It's fair that I will explain my position first to my colleague than to you. At the end, I will respond to all your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We condemn the attacks on civilians, and over the night we have also seen reports about the attack against the nuclear power plant. This just demonstrates the recklessness of this war and the importance of ending it, and the importance of Russia withdrawing all its troops and engaging in good faith in diplomatic efforts. NATO allies have implemented unprecedented sanctions. We provide support to Ukraine. At the same time, NATO is not part to the conflict. NATO is a defensive alliance. We don't seek war, conflict with Russia. At the same time, we need to make sure that there is no misunderstanding about our commitment to defend and protect all allies, and therefore we have increased the presence of NATO forces in the eastern part of the alliance. This is a defensive presence, and I welcome the strong commitment from the United States with more troops. I met many of them, and it's always great to meet US troops in Europe and to see their commitment and their professionalism being part of the transatlantic bond. I also welcome that European allies and Canada are stepping up with more presence in the eastern part of the alliance, on land, at sea and in the air. If anything, I think the crisis we are faced with now demonstrates the importance of North America standing together in strategic solidarity in NATO. So once again, Tony, welcome. It's great to see you here.
Jens, thank you so much. And I really couldn't say it any better. But simply put, in the wake of Russia's unprovoked, premeditated aggression against Ukraine, this alliance came together with speed, with unity, with determination, immediately launching the Rapid Response Task Force, putting in place the graduated plans to continue to bolster NATO's security. Every ally, in one way or another, is coming to Ukraine's assistance. Every ally, in one way or another, is helping to strengthen NATO itself. And as the Secretary General said, ours is a defensive alliance. We seek no conflict. But if conflict comes to us, we're ready for it. And we will defend every inch of NATO territory. At the same time, as the Secretary General said, we're preparing for NATO's future. And the events of the last few weeks, as they continue, will further inform that future, particularly going into the NATO summit in a few months, and the writing of a new strategic concept. All of these things are coming together at a critical time, but the single common denominator that we found, and that is the strength of everything that we do, is the unity of this alliance. It's been on full display in these weeks. It will remain on full display going forward, and I look forward to consulting with you, Jens, about the steps we're going to take next. Thank you. Thank you.
Der Ukrainerinnen und
I was here 2 weeks ago for the ministerial meeting. The world has changed a lot since then. We are now witnessing a full-fledged war in our borders, a war unleashed by President Putin against Ukraine, and a completely unjustified war that's creating a lot of civilian casualties, with the use of arms strictly prohibited by the Geneva Convention, a lot of civilian losses. That's the moment to speak out and to stand up. That's the moment where the transatlantic unity is more important than ever. We at the European Union, we have decided an unprecedented package of sanctions, financial, political, economic, sanctions that will hurt the Russian economy a lot. And we are supporting the right of Ukraine to defend, and we really admire the courage of the army, the people, and the government of Ukraine. I think it's important to launch the Moscow mechanism and to send a message, a mission, to see which are the acts that can be considered war crimes. And once and again, I think that's the moment in which we have to be united, because we cannot afford that might makes right. This is a critical moment in the history of Europe.
What do you expect from NATO to do?
A stronger unity and ready to act as much as we can. And the important thing for me is to keep the unity of the European Union member states around the sanctions, which are going to be very damaging for the Russian economy, especially the ones related with the central banks, and secondly, to keep the unity about how to provide arms to Ukraine. You know, that's the first time that we are engaged in these kind of operations. That's why I'm saying it's an historical moment for the European Union to be not only more united, but more effective.
So does Europe need to stop the flow of Russian energy, of Russian hydrocarbons, of Russian gas? Surely that would be very, very effective and damaging for the Russian economy, sir.
Sure it will. Sure it will. We will consider everything. 1 week ago I told you everything was on the table. And you could see that everything was on the table, because some measures that nobody could expect have been taken. So everything remains on the table.
When you say everything remains on the table, should
Everything.
the EU accept Georgia and Moldova?
Keep calm and don't shout.
Dramatically changed security situation in Europe. The situation where Russian Federation have started war against Ukraine, against sovereign country. And of course, we must do of utmost so that we could support Ukraine in this very difficult situation. What we see at the moment, we see that innocent people are killed in front of our eyes, and we have not managed to stop this war yet. So it means that we must continue to support Ukraine in any means, politically, economically, financially, but also with the defense means, so that Ukraine can protect their country. At the same time, we have to continue to raise the cost for aggressor, for Russia. We must go forward with sanctions and political isolation of Russia, because this violation of international law is just unacceptable. At the same time, of course, we are here in NATO today to discuss also how we must strengthen the security, how we must strengthen defense and deterrence posture of NATO, because what we see that the security situation in NATO, in Europe has changed for a long time. In NATO, we have made quick and very important decisions to strengthen the defense and deterrence posture of NATO, especially in the eastern flank. But now, of course, we must have these solutions for long term. Thank you.
C'est long, tu dois t'inscrire, c'est ça?
morning.
Good morning, sir. What does NATO need to do next?
Ich spreche Deutsch. Geht das?
Engels?
Ganz. So, ja. Also, ich glaube, heute gibt es 3 Sachen, die wichtig sind. Zuerst müssen wir den Russen ganz klar sagen, dass wenn wir unsere NATO-Mitglieder im Osten, wenn wir denen helfen, ist das keine Kriegshandlung. Wir dürfen uns also nicht provozieren lassen und uns da einziehen lassen. Das Zweite ist, wir müssen die Länder beschützen, die in der Europäischen Union sind, aber nicht in der NATO, wie zum Beispiel Schweden und Finnland. Aber auch ein sehr starkes im Fokus haben Moldawien und natürlich auch Georgien. Und dann das Dritte ist, wir müssen in der NATO uns ganz gut überlegen, denn nach jedem Krieg gibt es auch wieder Frieden, ob wir alles radikal abbrechen, auch das, was seit 1997 aufgebaut worden ist. Sie wissen, dass die Europäische Union, viele Gedanken davon sind entstanden noch während des Zweiten Weltkriegs. Und hier müssen wir also aufpassen, dass wir jetzt keine Schritte machen, die hernach uns schädigen. So, ich muss mich.
Halten Sie denn von einer No-Fly-Zone über der Ukraine jetzt nach den vor allem auch
Ja, also gut, zuerst muss die No-Fly-Zone wie überall von der UNO entschieden werden. Wir sind ja Realisten. Ne? Und dann das Zweite, wer würde das dann auch kontrollieren? Ich glaube, wir müssen jetzt mit den Füßen auf dem Boden bleiben und den Druck, den wir bis jetzt aufrechterhalten haben, müssen wir weitermachen. Allerdings auch wissen, diese wie sagt man das, Ohnmacht auch in der NATO militärisch einzuwirken, denn das wäre dann ja eine Weltkatastrophe.
Aber kann
okay,
das passieren,
ich
dass
muss
die
gehen,
NATO
es tut mir leid.
reingezogen wird?
Great to see you, and thank you. Okay, good morning. Welcome to all of you. I think we are ready to start. Welcome to this meeting of NATO foreign ministers. Russia has shattered peace on the European continent. It has engaged in a war of a scale, of a type not seen in Europe since the Second World War. Russian aggression has created a new normal for European security, where fundamental principles are contested through the use of force. The threat of pervasive conflict is real. We stand by the people of Ukraine and its democratically elected government, and we call on President Putin to stop the war, pull all his forces out of Ukraine, and engage in good faith in diplomatic efforts. NATO is a defensive alliance. We do not seek conflict with Russia. But let there be no doubt, our commitment to Article 5 of the Washington Treaty is ironclad. NATO will protect and defend every inch of NATO territory. And this ends the public part of the meeting, and I thank the media for joining us at the opening of the meeting, and we will continue in just a moment. Thank you.